Last time we left off with serious questions about whether evidence in Stephen Avery's case was properly documented or mishandled from the very start. From luminol reactions that led nowhere to the burn pit excavation, if you can call it that lacked basic forensic standards. Welcome back to the trial readings of the Avery trial. We are on episode 25. This is Beach House 34, and I am Christine Worth, your host. In our last episode, we dug into John Ertl's testimony and uncovered some issues about how evidence was collected, photographed, and preserved. And not a lot of it had to do with him in particular. It was those in charge that were telling him where to go and what to do, which is typical for the field team, which is who he was a part of. But what was so astonishing was the fact that the places that you would think that you would want the state's investigative team to check, like Avery's house, etc., the garage, they were not allowed to do that until days later, well after others had already been into those locations. Today, we're moving forward in the trial with some new witnesses who pick up right where the story left off. We are still on the same day that John Ertl testified, but these are the last two witnesses of the day, and their accounts might raise some more questions. I don't know. As I said, and as I have constantly reminded everybody, I don't read ahead on these. I don't know what's going to happen. The most I know is what I've seen in the Netflix documentaries of Making a Murderer. So that's about the extent of my knowledge of all of this. So let's move forward with the next witness in line, and that would be Deputy David Siders. He is called as a witness. He's been sworn in, and it is back to Attorney Kratz, who is doing the questioning as part of the prosecution, and the direct examination begins. Could you tell us how you are employed, sir? I'm employed with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department Patrol Division. And how long have you been so employed? Employed 6 years, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. What are your duties with Manitowoc County? I'm assigned to the Patrol Division, along with evidence technician, assigned to the Manitowoc County SOS team, would be the SWAT team, along with the Manitowoc County Dive team. Mr. Siders, were you employed with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department on the 7th of November, 2005? Yes, I was. Could you tell us, please, what your areas of responsibility were that day? Myself, along with Sergeant Scott Senglob, Deputy Mike Bushman, and Sergeant Jason Jost responded to 12930 Avery Road, would be the Avery Salvage Yard, to assist Calumet County Sheriff's Department searching the property. I'm guessing our court reporter would like you to slow down a little bit too. Okay. If you could do that, I would appreciate that. What were your responsibilities upon arrival at that scene? We were to make contact with the officer in charge at the scene to get the daily duties. Okay. Were you given a specific job that day? Yes. What was that? We were informed by the OIC to get in search groups. By the what? Officer in charge. All right. To get into a search group. The search group I was in was Search Group A. Our team leader of that search group was Deputy Mike Bushman of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. We were to search the property west of the Avery residence, along White Cedar Road, and property north of the Avery residence. This would be a cornfield just north of the Avery property. It's that open field that I'm most concerned about today, Deputy. I'm going to direct your attention to the large screen. This is exhibit number 85, counsel. And then Attorney Kratz says, this is exhibit number 85, counsel. And then he continues his questioning. Are you able to orient yourself as you look at that location? Yes. There's a laser pointer. Boy, this infamous laser pointer. There's a laser pointer that's right in front of you, Deputy Siders. If you take that laser pointer, please, and first tell me whether or not you and other search team members on the 7th of November did, in fact, search that open field north of the Avery salvage property. Yes, the team I was in, we searched starting here and worked our way across. All right. And you are pointing that would be just north of the road that travels basically east and west, which would be on the north edge of the Avery salvage property itself. Is that accurate? Correct. Let me ask you, Deputy Siders, were you given specific instruction as to what you were looking for? Yes, we were basically looking for any type of clothing, whether it be a shirt, pants, shoes, any kind of object, such as a cell phone, a camera, or even possibly a body. So at that time, that is, as of the 7th of November, a body or any human remains had not yet been found. Is that correct? That's correct. While searching in the area north of the Avery property, had you yourself made any discovery? Yes, I did. And can you tell the jury what that was, please? When we started to search the cornfield or the field north of that property, I came across a burning barrel, which was in my section of searching. I walked up to the burning barrel and I looked inside, at which time I saw a metal rim with wires wrapped around it. It appeared to be a vehicle rim with the remains of a steel belt from a rubber tire. Deputy Siders, Exhibit number 37, which has already been introduced into evidence in this case, it is now being shown on the screen. Can you tell us what we're looking at here, please? Yeah, this burning barrel right there is the one that I approached, and I looked inside and saw the metal rim inside. All right. As we look at Exhibit number 37, as we look at that burn barrel, can you describe for the jury a little bit more specifically where your team had been searching? Okay. My team had been searching starting from, there's a road here, starting from back behind here, and was working toward the burning barrel. I was positioned right along this area here, and the rest of the team was in a line going across to the north. Now, you told the jury that upon approach of this burning barrel, that you looked inside. Is that right? Correct. And I think you mentioned something about a rim. What is that? It appeared to me to be like a vehicle rim or like maybe a trailer rim to some type of vehicle. I'm going to show you what's already been introduced as exhibit number 51. Can you tell us what we're looking at here? This object here is what I observed lying on top inside the burning barrel. All right. I see that the rim is outside of the burn barrel in this photograph. Can you tell me if you know who removed the rim from inside the burn barrel? Yes, I removed the rim from inside the barrel. Okay. And when you looked inside of that burn barrel, can you tell us what you saw, please? Inside the burn barrel, I saw a lot of ashes and I saw a lot of burnt, melted plastic parts. As I looked closer at these plastic parts, it appeared to be parts of a cell phone that were actually melted inside the burning barrel. Before I show the rest of those pictures, there's one other photo just to orient us a little bit better. In the back of exhibit number 51, and now what we're looking at is exhibit 59, do you see a maroon a maroon van? Yes. Was that van there when you found the burn barrel and removed the rim from inside of it? I can't recall if it was or not. Okay. Your observations were directed towards the inside. Is that right? Yes. The court says, Deputy, actually, you can stay that distance from the microphone. I will just turn your volume down. The witness says, okay. The court says, if it's too loud. And then Attorney Kratz continues. The first exhibit that I placed in front of you has already been introduced as an exhibit. Can you tell us what number that is, please? It's exhibit 156. I'm sorry? 156. Tell us what that is. This here is the inside of the burn barrel. This is what I would actually have been looking at when I lifted the rim out of the burn barrel. Okay. You talked about seeing some items inside of there. Does Exhibit 156 look the same or similar as it did on the 7th of November as you looked inside that burn barrel? Yes, it does. There's 3 other exhibits in front of you. Why don't you grab them one at a time? Tell me what exhibit number they are and what it is that you are looking at. Next exhibit would be 154. Again, this would be the plastic remains I was looking at inside the burning barrel, parts to a cell phone. All right, Deputy Sider, take a look at the large screen. Is that exhibit 154? Yes, it is. And again, that's the same exhibit that's in front of you. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Tell me what the next exhibit in front of you is, please. Exhibit 155. And what is that? Again, that's looking inside the burning barrel at the parts that I located belonging to a cell phone. We're now going to show the jury Exhibit 155. Again, is this the same exhibit that's in front of you? Yes, it is. Now, Deputy Siders, you mentioned that you could tell, just on your observation, that at least one of the electronic components that you were looking at in the bottom of this burn barrel you believed to be a cell phone. Is that right? Yes. How did you know that? A closer look at the piece of plastic. I notice an M emblem on the cell phone. This M emblem, as known to me, to be a Motorola emblem for the company of Motorola. All right. There's one more exhibit in front of you. Tell me what that is, please. Exhibit 157. And what is that? That's also looking inside of the burning barrel, looking at parts of a camera. All right. Excuse me, cell phone. These 4 exhibits, and now that the jury is looking at 157, these 4 exhibits are really pretty much the same, different degrees of magnification or angle. But is that fair? That's correct. Now, Deputy Siders, after witnessing or discovering this burn barrel, were other law enforcement officers summoned to that location? Yes, they were. Do you know if, or let me just ask you this, do you know agents from what's known as the Division of Criminal Investigation? Yes. The scene, that is the burn barrel itself, was that scene maintained by you? In other words, did you make sure that, at least while you were there, nobody fooled around with the stuff that was inside of it or tampered with the evidence? And that's correct. I maintained custody of the barrel. And was there anybody from the Division of Criminal Investigation that you turned over custody of that burn barrel to? Yes, there was. Who was that? Kevin Highmural. Kevin Highmural? Correct. Now, were you in charge of either seizing, that is, securing the burn barrel, or later searching its contents? No, I was not. That was turned over to somebody else. Is that right? Correct. All right. Attorney Kratz then says, with the offer of those 4 photographs, Judge, that's all the questions I have of this witness. Thank you. Attorney Strang of the defense says, I have no objection to, I think they were 154, 155, and 156 already is in, and then 157. And the court says, all right, the remaining exhibits then will be admitted. And then Attorney Strang begins his cross-examination. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Let's go back, if we could, to Exhibit 51. When you folks were assigned to start looking through the farm field north of the Avery property, your assignment also included part of the Avery property? Yes. So this was really the very beginning of the search of the field to the north? Yes. This would be at the beginning of the search of the field. Attorney Strang then says, now, that's actually not the one I thought. Where was the picture right before, which had the burning barrel from a greater distance with the trailer in the background? I'm sorry. What is the one you showed right before? Attorney Buting says 37. Attorney Strang says 37. That's it. There it is. And then he continues. Now, that red trailer in the back, that's Stephen Avery's house? Correct. This burn barrel, it's a little hard to tell from here, but the burn barrel looks like it's sort of sitting right out in the open in a grassy area? Correct. But although we can't see the blue double wide that would be to the left off this photo, there is another house there. Do you remember that? Yes, correct. House trailer. The burn barrel would be closer to the red trailer than to the other trailer. I don't know the distance. I didn't measure the burning barrel from either trailer. I couldn't answer that. I know you didn't measure it, but no recollection of which one to the eyeball it looked closer to? I couldn't tell. Okay. But in any event, it's sort of sitting right off the gravel road, essentially becomes a driveway into the garage. Correct. When you walked up and you looked down and you see this rim in there, you were able to just reach in and pull the rim out? Yes. That's a heavy enough item. Even you had to use two hands? Yes. What looked to you like maybe the remains of a steel-belted radial, was that intertwined with the rim? Yes. So that came out with the rim? Yes. You set that down. Did the whole assembly look to you like somebody might simply have burned an entire tire and wheel assembly? Yes. Once you then had the rim and the belt out, you noticed that these things were rusty. What was rusty, the rim or the rim? Yes. If there was a steel-belted radial, whatever the wiring was, yes. That was rusty? Yes. All right. And then looked in there, and one thing we can't tell from, or I can't tell, at least from exhibits 154 through 157 in front of you, is how deep does it look like the ash and crud at the bottom of that can was? If you could bring up a closer view of that burning barrel, sure. We'll go back to the one I thought I wanted, 51. How is that? Okay. It's not an exact measurement. My estimation would have been that the top of the rim would have been sitting right around there. So maybe roughly 2/3 of that barrel would have been full of ash and other material. Correct. You were able to reach in easily had you wanted to, and you could have touched these melted cell phone parts that you saw. You would have to actually probably lean over to touch okay, but they were probably above my vocabulary is going to fail me now, but the ridge or crease, the higher ridge or crease on the barrel. I would say that the parts were probably, give you another estimation, right around this area there. Okay. They weren't at the bottom. They were more somewhere right in here. All right. So if those ridges roughly divide this barrel into thirds, give or take, the barrel was about 2/3 full of this junk and ash. Correct. But the cell phone parts you saw were lying on top. Correct. Of the other junk and ash, in looking in there, did it look to you as if a sort of crust had formed over the ash in the barrel? The ash was more, it had rained heavily, so it was kind of like a muck type of ash. I couldn't say that there was actually a film. I just noted that it was all wet and damp. It had the look of ashes after they had been rained on, correct, and then begun to dry. Yes. I mean, they still would have been mucky, yeah, but the look I'm talking about, where eventually as it dries, appear almost a crust on the ash? Correct. The cell phone pieces were atop that, kind of not, or kind of mixed in with the ash. They weren't just like laying on top. They were kind of mixed in. Because it still looked mucky to you? Correct. The entire time you spent at that barrel before, let's say, boy, that looks like the Motorola emblem or the insignia for Motorola, the entire time was, give or take, roughly how long? That I stood there to observe that? Yeah, before you said, boy, I think I see the Motorola emblem. I don't know, approximately 4 to 5 minutes just looking at it. Just looking at it? Yes. But not touching things? I didn't touch anything in there. But 4 to 5 minutes is a long time, actually. If we were to stand silent for 4 to 5 minutes, it would seem like an eternity. But you think it may have been that long? Give or take. And then you called somebody else over? Yes, I did. Was there anything other than being burned? Was there anything obscured about the Motorola emblem? Other than it was melted plastic? Right. And all of this, as the photos showed, sort of takes on a various shades of gray. Correct. Maybe we could go back to, was there one in particular there where you can see that Motorola emblem? I'm not going to be able to tell with these photographs here. It's just not that clear. So the photographs, you cannot see a Motorola emblem? No, I can't. But you were able to, with the naked eye, standing over this? Correct. The 6, now going on 7 years, I guess, that you have been with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Have you been on the dive team the entire time? I have been on the dive team for the last 3 years. Did you do any diving here? No, I did not. Weren't asked to participate in any of the dives? No, we were not. Do you know who did the dives? I believe it was the Outagamie Sheriff's Department dive team. Did you say, gosh, I'm a member of a dive team and my department has one. Did you volunteer to do that? No, I did not. Why not? We weren't asked to. Our dive team was usually requested by either our sheriff or another outside agency to assist with a dive. If we're not asked, we don't dive. And in this situation, the people running the search looked over across Lake Winnebago to the top of Lake Winnebago to the Outagamie County Sheriff's Department. That's what I can guess. They were the ones that contacted them. Attorney Strang says that's all I have. The court says any redirect? Attorney Kratz says not of this witness, Judge, no. The court says very well, the witness is excused. Attorney Kratz then says, could we approach just briefly, Judge? And the court says, sure. And at this point, a sidebar is taken. And then Attorney Kratz says, I'm going to call Bill Tyson to the stand. And the clerk then swears in the witness, and the direct examination is begun again by Attorney Kratz. Mr. Tyson, how are you employed? I am a sergeant with the patrol staff with the Calumet County Sheriff's Department. As a sergeant with Calumet County, were you asked to assist in search efforts at what's now called the Avery salvage yard? Yes. How was it that you were called out in this case? It was on November 5th. It was approximately 20 after 1 in the afternoon. I received a telephone call at my residence from the Calumet County Dispatch Center. They informed me that Teresa Halbach's vehicle was located at the Avery property and that my assistance was needed at the property. I'm sorry, Sergeant Tyson, you said that you were called out at your home. Let me ask you, as a member of the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, had you been made aware before that date of Miss Halbach's disappearance? Yes. Being the patrol sergeant, I do the shift brief things and things like that. I know our department did take a phone call, I believe it was early days of November, where the information was that Corporal Leslie Lemieux had taken a complaint of a missing person, that being Teresa Halbach. So we were told to look for her, also her vehicle, and the plate number that belonged on her vehicle. Prior to me getting that call on Saturday the 5th, yes, I was aware of the fact that our agency, as well as other agencies, were looking for her and her vehicle. Sergeant Tyson, after getting the call at home, where did you proceed to? I responded to the Sheriff's Department. I was standing by at the Sheriff's Department waiting for another deputy that was en route, also to the Sheriff's Department, to arrive. I waited at the Sheriff's Department until she arrived. Upon her arrival, we did proceed over to the Avery property. Now, together with being a patrol sergeant, do you have any other areas of specialization within the Calumet County Sheriff's Department? Yes. Back in 1994, I was promoted from a corrections officer to a patrolman. Along with that, I was sent to an evidence technician school in 1994. So, throughout the years of 1994 until March of 2005, I would respond to crime scenes in the county to process the crime scenes. Those were, some of my responsibilities. Okay. About what time did you arrive at the Avery salvage property, if you remember? If I recall correctly, I think it was 2:45 in the afternoon. Upon arrival at the Avery salvage property, do you recall what your first duty was? I was met by Investigator Wiegert and Steyer. They directed me to go down into the junkyard area and made contact with officers down in that area. I proceeded down into the junkyard area where I met with several law enforcement officers that were down there, and they were keeping a crime scene log. I did introduce myself and I was talking with them briefly and was instructed to relieve a deputy that was standing by Teresa Halbach's vehicle. Christine here. That sentence about, and they were keeping a crime scene log, doesn't that seem really out of place? Like, hey, don't forget to mention that they were keeping a crime scene log. If you remember from previous episodes, this has been kind of a point of contention, right? All right, let's continue. All right. We have heard testimony from several Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputies as to being first on the scene. Do you recall what department, that is, from what agency you were asked to relieve what's now known as the scene security? It was a Manitowoc County Sheriff's deputy that was standing by the vehicle when I arrived. All right. To your knowledge, Deputy Tyson, were you the first Calumet County officer? I guess to state it more succinctly, were you the individual who relieved Manitowoc County from scene security responsibilities? Yeah, my understanding is I was the first Calumet County deputy to take custody of the vehicle. All right. At some point, and I don't expect you were involved in this decision, but at some point, were you made aware that security for the RAV4 and for that general area of the Avery property was to be either coordinated or taken over by Calumet County? Yes. I'm going to show you what's God, I'm so sorry. I'm going to show you what's been received as exhibit number 86. There is a laser pointer in front of you. Could you tell the jurors, if you remember, about what time it was that you took over security of the RAV4 or security of that area of the scene? According to the crime scene log, when I checked in with them, it was 5 minutes to 3, I believe. Can you show us about where this transition took place and where were you standing that you took over security of this area? On the display over here? Sure. All right. Do you need me to zoom in a little? Maybe just a little bit. I'm sorry. Let me, I think, I think even defense counsel would agree that the lower left-hand corner now of this exhibit is what we have now known as the car crusher. There's a pond that's just about in the middle of the exhibit. Does that orient you to the scene? If the car crusher is right down there, yes, I think that would be going down the hill. And it would be right about in this area over here, I believe, is where I was requested to stand by with the vehicle. How close to the vehicle were you standing? Do you recall? Within a foot or two, just that I was not touching it, brushing up against it, but standing right there. Now, I'm going to fast forward just a minute, and I think you will see why. But later on that day, were you given other responsibilities at that crime scene location? Yes. Any time between taking over security of the RAV4 and the time that you were relieved to perform other duties, did you see any individuals, any police officers, or any citizens either tamper with or enter this RAV4? No, several officers did come close to it because of the weather conditions. It had gotten really dark. There was a mist in the area. Our concern was any evidence that could be on the exterior of the vehicle. An agent, later identified as Agent Fassbender, was concerned about that as well. A tarp was located in an attempt to protect it from the elements from the incoming storm. But extreme care, and I mean extreme care, was used to make sure no officer touched it or even the tarp touched the vehicle. And was that one of your responsibilities? Yes. Sergeant Tyson, do you know what a search warrant is? Yes. And sometime that afternoon, were you made aware that a search warrant for the Avery property itself, for the vehicles thereon, the residences, and the outbuildings had been obtained by a Manitowoc County judge? Yes. Were you made aware that the search warrant needed to be executed, that is, that searches had to be performed that day? Yes. In that regard, Sergeant Tyson, were you asked to assist in any of those searches? Yes. Who asked you or directed you to assist in those searches? The decisions were being made by Investigator Wiegert from the Sheriff's Department in Calumet and DCI Agent Fassbender. They informed me after everything was sorted through and figured out which teams were going to go where. They told me I should go with Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department over to Stephen Avery's residence. Now, Sergeant Tyson, prior to being assigned to this team, this search team, had anybody on the scene asked you or discussed with you your levels of expertise in evidence collection or processing? Investigator Wiegert is fully aware of, I guess, my experience. He just informed me that I would be requested to go with them to execute the search warrant. All right. Now, you said that you were teamed up with or that you joined other officers. Do you remember who was in your team? Yes, it was Lieutenant Jim Link from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, Sergeant Andy Colburn from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, and Detective Dave Remacher from the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Was there any discussion about what each of your responsibilities were going to be? And I guess more specifically, was there a discussion about who was in charge of this team? It was told to me that no Manitowoc County deputy should be alone on the property. Investigator Wiegert told me my responsibility would be to go with them into the Steve Avery trailer and to document what they were doing, take notes, and if evidence was seized by them, to take custody of all the evidence at the end of the search warrant. Do you know why a Calumet County deputy was put in charge of the custody of any physical evidence that might be obtained? It was told to me that Investigator Wiegert would be the lead investigator and that the investigation was turned over to Calumet County versus Manitowoc County. Christine here. Boy, he didn't really answer that. Did he? No, he just kind of reiterated what he had just said. Anyway, let's continue. All right. Going into that scene, that is, going into that first search effort that you did, was that made clear to you? Yes. And from your knowledge, or were you present, was that made clear to the other members of your team? Yeah, there was no misunderstanding as far as who was taking custody. There was no discussions, no arguments, I should say, from anybody that I was with. It was a clear understanding of what was to happen. All right. Were there other search efforts going on, or were you made aware of other search efforts in this entire location at the same time that you and this team had been developed? My understanding was there was a number of things that were going on at the same time. You know, our team was just designated to go down to Stephen's trailer, but there were other officers being assigned different duties as well. What those were, I really don't know. My responsibility was my team and where we were going to be going. Now, the kind of search that you were asked to perform, were you given direction about that? I guess I wouldn't really say direction. We were to execute the search warrant, and talking with the Manitowoc officers, it was more of a quick, anything in the obvious, let's go through the residence, see if we can find Teresa, anything to do with Teresa, anything at all. But that's kind of how the first search, I would classify it as. Let me ask you this, Sergeant Tyson. Did you have an understanding that either you or other police officers would be re-entering this residence? Yes. It was commonly known that this was a scene that was going to be held. And, you know, it was 7:30, When we went through the front door of Stephen's residence, and it notes in the transcript the court reporter couldn't hear, and then he continues his answer. I guess I'm not sure where was I going? I started with we were heading down to the Steve Avery trailer. Right, right. It was raining out, it was pouring. We were all drenched, but we got inside the trailer. It was 7:30 in the afternoon. And, the search had started at 7:45, and it was a quick search. We were out of there within 3 hours. Now, for 16 people that have never probably done a search, or excuse me, search warrant, you just called a 3-hour search a quick search. Could you explain that to the jury? What's quick about a 3-hour search? And not knowing a lot of the information that was later learned, we're looking at this whole area. Where is the crime scene? Is there a location exactly on the property? So when we're going through the house, we're looking for things that are obvious to us, any blood or anything like that. So to say that you can search someone's bedroom within 30 minutes, okay, well, that's a quick search. And you are talking the closet areas, you are talking desk drawers, you are talking under the bed, you are talking the whole area. And if you are looking for things in specific, that would mean basically you would have to go through the closet, every article of clothing removed, through the pockets. It's going to take you a whole lot longer than that to say that you thoroughly did a thorough search. Let me ask you then, Sergeant Tyson, have you been involved in thorough searches that you were looking for smaller items of evidence or trace evidence or things like that before in your career? Yes, working in the drug unit, execute search warrants. You're looking for a small pipe or something. You have to be very thorough. You have to go into areas where something like that, small, could be. So it's a very detailed, very thorough search when you are dealing with like drug materials and things like that. And that first search, that is the first search that you and Lieutenant Link and Sergeant Colburn and Detective Rummaker did, would you have considered that a thorough search, one of these thorough searches that you are describing? No. Like I said, half hour to go through a bedroom and be out of that whole residence within 2.5 to 3 hours. That's a quick search. All right. We're going to go through each of these specific rooms that were searched by you that evening. Attorney Kratz then says, Judge, if you would like me to do that, I can. Otherwise, this might be a good time to break. And the court says, sounds like this might be a good time to take our afternoon break. All right, let's stop here for today, because if we keep going, we're going to slide headfirst into Tyson's very long testimony, and that deserves its own full episode. So what did we hear today? We had Deputy Siders from Manitowoc County walk us through the discovery of the burn barrel. He described ashes, melted plastic, and what he believed were parts of a Motorola cell phone. He even pulled out a rim from inside the barrel with his own 2 hands, evidently. A couple of things jump out here. First, Siders testified that he could clearly see a Motorola M emblem on the phone parts. But when the photographs were introduced, you couldn't see it. He admitted as much on the stand. So, we're kind of left just taking his word for it. Does that sit right with you? Because it doesn't with me. If it's that clear in person, why can't it be documented on film? I mean, this isn't like, 1974 or anything. I mean, this is 2005. Second, the way that evidence handling played out here feels messy. Siders says he removed the rim himself, then left the rest to DCI agents. But in between, he admits he stood over that barrel for 4 or 5 minutes, just observing. And the defense brought up a good point. It's like if we stood here for just 4 or 5 minutes just looking at something, it seems like an eternity. I mean, literally, if you're curious, try it. Try standing and staring at something for 4 to 5 minutes. I couldn't do it. I don't know about you, but the longer someone pokes around or even stands there, the more I start to wonder what opportunities there were for contamination, for shifting things around, or even just misremembering what they saw. Then we move into Sergeant Tyson's testimony, though we barely got started. He establishes the handoff moment when Calumet officially takes over for Manitowoc. And here's kind of where I have to pause. Tyson makes sure to point out that a crime scene log was being kept. This jumped out at me because in earlier testimony, we've heard questions about whether that log was thorough or even consistent. So when a witness suddenly emphasizes, oh, yeah, we were keeping a crime scene log, it feels a little forced, doesn't it? Almost like they've been reminded, hey, be sure you mention the log. And maybe most importantly, Tyson confirms what we already know by now, that Manitowoc County was still heavily involved. Despite the conflict of interest, despite being told to step back, they're the ones searching Stephen Avery's trailer. Tyson says his job was basically to tag along and document what Manitowoc found. But come on, that's not separation. That's not, doing it independently. That's Manitowoc still running the show. So as we close episode 25, here's where we're at. We've got a burn barrel with evidence that doesn't quite line up between what's visible in person versus in photos. We've got questions about handling contamination and how neat this narrative is ending up being. And now we've got Calumet officially stepping in, officially, air quotes, but somehow Manitowoc is still right in the middle of the most critical searches. In the next episode, we'll get deep into Tyson's testimony, where he describes that quick, quote unquote, 3-hour search of Stephen Avery's trailer. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how that plays out. And if you're wondering, well, Christine, how the hell do you know that? You told us all the time, tell us all the time, you don't read ahead on these things. Well, that would be because I recorded over 50 minutes of it, seeing the audio bar move up and down, thinking that everything was okay, until I realized that I had never actually clicked record. So yeah, this is the kind of shit that happens sometimes. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be back real soon, with the rest of Tyson's testimony. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.